Good afternoon there, Facebook. Meteorologist Daniel Phillips here. Wanted to give you guys a quick update, not just on Tropical Storm Nate, but some of the challenges that we are looking at as we get ready to forecast a system that could have impacts as early as Sunday morning. So it is going to be a lot of forecasting in a very short amount of time. So we're going to start running through that. Let me change up the camera view here. This is a look at Tropical Storm Nate. Now, does not look particularly great. And there's some challenges that Nate's going to face, namely all of this convection that is sitting on the western side of it is going to eat away at that center, or potentially eat away at that center, which is could end up doing a lot of damage to the system itself. You still see a little bit of convection bursting up. That's going to be on the eastern edge of where that low is, which is going to be right around here somewhere. And this is pretty typical in a weakly structured tropical storm. You're going to see most of the activity on going out over towards the east, and that's important to remember as you start talking about where you're going to see the biggest impacts that are associated with this storm. It's been moving northwards at about 9 miles an hour. It was moving towards the northwest. It's going to move up over towards the Yucatan, and that's going to be by Friday. But did want to point this out as well. And we'll go down here. As it approaches the Yucatan, that's going to be right around Friday night as it does so. The next day, the next 24, 36 hours are going to tell us a lot about what Nate is going to look like as it enters the Gulf of Mexico. Intensity forecasting is already a massive challenge to do with good circumstances, and now when you're dealing with 3 separate bodies of land that it has to deal with, as well as some stronger winds in the Gulf of Mexico, it's going to make this incredibly difficult to really try and pin down. So what's tough about this is we're not going to have a great idea of structure or intensity until maybe Friday night as it comes off the Yucatan, and then you're looking at the potential impacts arriving by late Saturday, early Sunday morning. So the time frame that we're going to be working with here basically throughout the course of the storm is going to be very fast paced, and it's going to be very short, which is going to complicate what's already going to be a bit of a tricky forecast. So that being said, this is what the official National Hurricane Center forecast track does. It moves it up through the weekend as a Category 1 storm towards the mouth of the Mississippi River. That's going to put it on the border of Mississippi and Louisiana at landfall. Again, wanting to point out, don't pay attention just to this center line here or focus about where the eye is going to be. This cone stretches all the way through towards the basin and even into parts of St. Mary Parish. This is going to be eastern parts of Iberia Parish that are inside of this cone as well. And cone doesn't always tell the full story. I mean, we are right on the edge of all of this, so it's going to be a little bit too close for comfort. We do have to monitor and keep in mind this ever-evolving forecast to make sure that we are paying close attention over the coming days. Notice how far this cone stretches out as well. This goes up closer to the Pensacola-Navarre area of Florida, all the way through Mobile into Mississippi, beyond New Orleans, Baton Rouge, and then even towards Acadiana. So we're talking about a pretty decent amount of uncertainty there, and moving quickly at that, which is going to compound some of the difficulties as well. You can see that this moves up into eastern portions of Tennessee and washes out as early as Monday morning. So a lot happening in not a whole lot of time. And again, until it comes off of the Yucatan, we're going to not have a lot of information that kind of tells us what our wind impacts are going to be and what our storm surge and flooding impacts could potentially be, which is making this tough because you're going to have to make a lot of decisions really, really quickly. This is why we always say at the beginning of the year, you need to make sure that you have your hurricane plan in place, because for a time like now, you review that plan, you make sure that if the storm reaches a certain strength that makes you uncomfortable, or it's headed in a certain direction and the time frame is getting closer and closer, that when you need to act, you can act and act quickly. Here's a quick look, an idea of some of the challenges that we're looking at. There's a lot going on in this graphic. I'm going to walk everyone through it. These are 2 different model runs that we're taking a look at. One of them is the European model, one of them is the GFS. The white lines, that's going to be your GFS model. This takes us up to where the estimated landfall time is going to be, so Sunday early morning, and you can see a much weaker storm further to the west. This is going to be more or less an open wave. That's how the GFS has trended as far as intensity. It's also been a little bit further westward than what the Euro has. These purple lines here, the stronger storm, that's going to be your European model, and that is heavily influencing what the National Hurricane Center is doing with their cone of uncertainty. Same with intensity as well, because it's pretty evident that the European would have a much more intense storm. These are not guarantees of what is to come. This is more or less gives you an idea of some of the decisions that go into forecasting, some of the challenges we're looking at in forecasting. You can see just how different the two outputs are, and these are two of our more reliable models. So something that we've been watching and something that we've been struggling with. It is worth noting that the track from the European, so that's these purple lines, that has actually shifted westward over the last couple days, especially overnight last night. Had a big shift. This was more over into the Florida Panhandle this time yesterday as far as the European was concerned. So it's trending a little bit closer towards the GFS. Now we just have to hope that that intensity forecast kind of trends in the same direction too. This is why we also always preach not to get hung up on one particular forecast, but instead to watch how the forecast trends, and is it getting stronger or weaker? Is it trending westward or eastward? Those are the things that you are going to want to watch over the next couple days. So again, I'm going to give you one last look here of what we can expect this cone to look like. That is the landfall close to Sunday morning. This is potential to change. It'll probably change a lot over the next couple days. The next advisory comes out right around 1 o'clock from the National Hurricane Center. We'll probably put something quick up online, and then Rob is going to be in later on this evening. So the big messages to take away from this is that there are a lot of question marks that exist surrounding this storm. We need some more details to become available before we can really start nailing down some of those impacts and those timing and just how strong this is going to be. But regardless, right now, certainly the cone close enough and the forecast close enough that it's time to start thinking about and paying attention to the forecast. Again, now is the time to make sure that you have your plan in place and ready to act. You may not need to take action, but if you do, that to make sure that you're ready for it, because again, we'll have a much better idea of how this thing looks and how this thing will behave starting Friday night, but that doesn't give you a lot of time from Friday night into early Sunday morning. I'm going to go ahead and sign off here. Again, Rob is going to have updates for you coming up later on tonight, and then when the 1 o'clock advisory comes out, I'll make sure that I get the latest track up online, so make sure to follow KATC both on air and online throughout the day to stay on top of the forecast. In the meantime, live from the Weather Lab, I'm meteorologist Daniel Phillips.